There are several underrated anime out there, hidden gems that are so underappreciated that their names are forever lost in the abyss of seasonal shows that come out. So that's why we here at On The Rise try to shed some light on the shows that you probably don't watch, but should be. Hi, I'm RJ Lane, and this is On The Rise, where we discuss anime and video game related topics. This segment of our channel is called Underrated Fever, so if there's something you like, subscribe for more. Now onto the video. Throughout the years, there has been one comic that has stood the test of time, managing to not only produce some of the most famous manga, but anime as well. Yes, we're talking about the king itself, Shonen Jump. If you're an anime fan and you're not familiar with Shonen Jump, well, that's a lie. Because there's no way you haven't heard of titles like Naruto, Dragon Ball, One Piece, Bleach, and Hunter x Hunter. But I'm not here to talk about series you've definitely heard of. I'm here to talk about series you probably haven't heard of or just haven't gotten around to watching yet. Yes, even Shonen Jump has a couple of underrated gems, but none has stood out more to me than Daisuke Ashihara's World Trigger. Although the manga is not published in Weekly Shonen Jump anymore, instead it's published in Jump Square, yes, there's a difference. World Trigger takes place in Mikado City, where one day a gate from another world opens up and giant monsters known as neighbors come to invade. Lucky for the city, there's an organization known as Border to defend them from the neighbors. Cut to 4 years later, where Osamu Mukumo, a C-rank agent of Border who has just encountered a humanoid neighbor named Yua Kuga. Long story short, Kuga and Osamu work together up the ranks of Border in order to obtain the right to enter the neighbor world. The anime is produced by Toei, the people behind Toriko and One Piece, but unfortunately the anime is no longer running due to the author having to take a hiatus from the manga. However, the manga just recently came back, so fingers crossed on a second season. There are two things about World Trigger that appeal to me: the structure of its world, and how Daisuke Ashihara beautifully writes his fight scenes without any cliche friendship power-ups. But let's talk about the world first. World Trigger's greatest asset, and probably worst at the same time, is that it wastes no time explaining the world and how it works, especially in the anime. Hell, most of the first part of the series is exposition after exposition. There's no way you can come out of this anime confused, and if you can make it past the exposition dumps, then you're in for a treat. The world of World Trigger centers around Border, the agency protecting the city from the neighbors. Every major character is a part of this organization some way or another, and that's where the joy of the world comes in. Ashihara makes you want to join Border by explaining the systems, the weapons, and even taking up the fear of death. He opens up a whole new world of possibilities where you can pick and choose your fighting style as you see fit. Border is structured in such a way that resembles an RPG where you can customize your own character. And it works. World Trigger at its core doesn't seem all that complicated, but its complexity comes from how simple the elements of the story are used. If that makes any sense. Take the triggers for example. It's the weapons that everyone in the show fights with. You can't fight without a trigger. The triggers come in many shapes and forms, such as swords, guns, and shields. Simple enough, right? But it's how each character uses these simple weapons to customize their arsenal that gives the character meaning and sets them apart from one another. No one major character fights the same way. It may use the same weapon, but in a different format. Take Kuga and Kageura for example. Both use a trigger named Scorpion. However, Kuga uses it as a normal sword, and Kageura uses it as a whip. This leads me into the fighting aspect of the series. Now, World Trigger does have a plot, and it's well written, but if you're looking at shows that rely on plot as its major focus, you're better off going to titles like Made in Abyss, Promised Neverland, and Be the Beginning, which are all getting their own videos. Trust me, I love those shows. But World Trigger is all about the action, who can beat who and how they pull it off. To achieve this, you need to rely on one major thing: power scaling. Shonen battle series thrive on power scaling. It moves the plot forward, it begins the debates, the death battles, the blogs, the fanboy wars, you name it. If you ignore power scaling within a shonen, you just end up with predictable outcomes where your audience won't even consider the new villain a threat. World Trigger doesn't have this problem because it literally does what 90% of shonen anime don't halfway through their stories. It sticks to its rankings. The progression of power is a must for shonen battle anime. Everyone is excited to see what move their favorite characters pull off next. Yet, somewhere down the line, this process begins to ignore all the previous stages of power set at the beginning of the series. Remember when captains in Bleach used to be a threat and the story actually made you fear for Ichigo's survival? Yeah, by the time the next arc rolled around, you weren't captain level, you weren't really doing much. Remember when ninja rankings mattered in Naruto before the contest of who had the most Hashirama cells began? Remember power levels in DBZ? I can't even say that with a straight face, to be honest. Anyway, World Trigger sticks to their rankings. Our main cast, the Agent of Border, are all ranked from A to D, D being the weakest. And this is shown through its fights. It's not just who has the best trigger that wins, it's who uses their trigger the best. Take Mikumo, our protagonist for example. There are several who have the same trigger as he does, but it's others that use it better than him that makes him so weak, and the ones who use their trigger the best are always ranked pretty high. Ashihara does an amazing job at showing how each character earned their ranking, and even how B-rank soldiers are not to be messed with. The ones who have black triggers are an exception to this ranking rule, but they really don't count because they were stated to be the strongest early on in the series. Even with the main cast, brute force is almost never the answer. In every major fight, Ashihara has the audience looking for Kuga's next badass strategy, or how characters like Team Kazuma work together to take down an enemy. Even characters that would seem like your typical shonen muscleheads are actually pretty intelligent fighters. World Trigger relies on the element of strategy in its fight scenes, leaving no room for stupid characters, literally forcing its entire cast to have some sort of intelligence, and that's something you don't see in your everyday shonen. Not saying that your everyday shonen are bad, just saying that World Trigger brings something new to the table, and that you should definitely watch it. And that's the main point of this video. You will fall in love with the characters of the show. Seeing how all the agents interact like one big family is one of the highlights. Now, I'm not gonna steer you wrong here. World Trigger does have its flaws. The pacing is a bit slow throughout the show, but once you're invested, you're pretty much hooked. The animation's also not the best it could be, but the story makes up for the lack of Sakuga within the show. Needless to say, World Trigger was a fun ride from start to finish. I recommend this show to any shonen battle creeper, and if the pacing of the anime is too slow, then I would say pick up the manga, because it's an amazing read. Plus, you get more of the story without the filler. Just saying. World Trigger receives a 7 out of 10 from me. A good watch or read, whichever one you prefer. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any anime that you feel is underrated that the community should know about, just let us know in the comments below. And if you like this type of stuff, feel free to subscribe. Please. Until next time, I'm RJ Lane, and this has been On the Rise.